I played every pirate MMO so you don't have to.
Welcome to Tulsa, Captain Jack Sparrow enters.
Pirate-themed MMOs has to be one of the least popular game types.
Brother, what's that?
For a genre that has been around for almost 30 years now, it's kind of surprising that there aren't more MMOs based around swashbuckling pirates and digging up treasure, which is why I have assigned myself the task of trying out each and every single pirate-themed MMO.
What the hell is even that?
Even the unpopular ones, and especially the ones that no one have ever heard of.
Right, yeah, of course.
And you might be wondering, why am I doing this? Well, it's simple. Because that's what we do here on this channel, play dead and irrelevant games while making video essays about them, which get fuck all views. Like and subscribe. And with that, let's kick it off with our first MMO, Pirates of the Burning Sea. Despite not being well known, Pirates of the Burning Sea has been around since the early days of MMOs, and was in beta for 2 years before it's officially released in 2008. Its unique selling point is that it's an open world, economy driven MMO. There's a global auction house so you can see what's being sold across the map. However, if you want to buy that item, you have to go there in person to collect it. More like Pirates of the UPS, am I right? I promise the jokes will get better. Anyway, it's free to play and can be downloaded directly from their website, and here's how I got on. Wow, there's a whole free servers. So after logging on for the first time, I was prompted to create a new character. There were 4 factions to choose from, each with their own unique classes. The factions consisted of the French,
So hard, motherfuckers want to find me.
the British,
I just woke up in a fucking steaming mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole!
the Spanish, and of course, the pirates.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
So naturally, I was left with no choice but British. After carefully crafting my character, I was ready to serve my king and country.
Oh good heavens, how utterly cringeworthy.
Kinda makes you proud, doesn't it? For the next couple of hours, the game is basically a tutorial teaching you how to fight, how to sail a ship, and then how to fight with that ship. And if you really want to, you can combine the ship combat, the ground combat, to give you boarding a ship combat. I know, it's a lot to take in, but bear with me. Once you complete the first couple of main quests, you are then free to leave the island on your boat. And that's where the game really truly starts to open up. You have a huge map to go explore, a couple of different settlements you can go to. I say a couple, I mean, look at all of them. And you can even opt in for open world PvP, or just casually cruise through the PvP zone.
I'm in danger!
But let's stop gallivanting around the question and just jump straight to it. Is it any fun? And the simple answer is no. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but hear me out for a second. The combat, although it does bring something new to the table, it does get pretty old and repetitive quite quickly. Tab targeting pirate ships with 20 buttons on your action bar should be a cool thing, right? But unfortunately, when it comes to fighting enemies, there's just not that much variety. There's a cooldown on your cannons and the AI just isn't that smart. Maybe it's just boat combat in general just isn't that fun or exciting, but going around in a circle shooting each other till one eventually dies just doesn't really cut it. I really like the ship customization. I think they've got a really good concept here. I like the idea of buying a bigger ship or just upgrading what I currently have. And even the fact that when you die at sea, everything you have will be lost. I actually like that idea. I like the risk versus reward element.
I've got nothing left. I've got nothing left.
But nothing takes away from the fact that the combat is just so boring. Yes, boarding the enemy ship is definitely a lot more exciting, and it should be something that should happen more often. But unfortunately, it just doesn't. The quests weren't awful, there's definitely a story to be had here. It's just, they were a bit convoluted, trying to figure out where to go and what to do. And the emphasis on the economy being run by the players, I'm not against that, it's a great idea if your game is thriving. But as a new player looking at the auction house, There's just nothing I could buy, and I understand why. It's because they don't get a lot of new players. Anyone still playing this game is very much endgame. I'm sure this could be one of those titles where if you play 100 hours, it gets good. But if I have to drag myself through 100 hours, I'm sure I'll end up playing something else. As for the community, I ran into 2 players, spoke to them, they stood still and ignored me. I think they were just AFK, to be fair. The global chat wasn't popping off, and yeah, it was just a very, very lonely game. I did join the Discord, I could see there was activity. I do believe there is a community there, but it's probably very much a end game community, and if you're not playing on certain days, you'll probably miss them completely. In conclusion, I don't think it's a bad game, I just think it lacks a population, and to be honest, if that new player experience was a lot better, then they would have a bigger player base to work with. Just an idea, maybe double XP for new players, it could go a long way. But also, who's ever seen this game advertised? I know I haven't. But anyway, let's move on to the next title.
Bounty Bay Online, the first massive multiplayer online game which takes place in the time of sailors and voyagers.
Bullshit.
Actually, it was Pirates of the Caribbean Online, and this is true because Wikipedia told me so. But it's okay, I will not hold this against my review of this game. Maybe. You can download and play for free from the official Bounty Bay Online website, although be warned, the actual install file is so old, your computer will think it's a virus. Once you have installed this ever so questionable looking game, you'll also be prompted to create an account, which, be warned, is kind of shady the way they do this because they'll ask you to select a game and then prompt you to put in some payment method. Even though the game's free, you can just cancel off this and play normally. I repeat, you do not need to pay for this game. Once loaded, I was prompted to choose a server. There was an option between some German ones and an English one. I obviously chose English and then logged in. What was then presented was the least obvious starting screen you've ever seen, but out the corner of my eye, I did notice the create button. Up next, I had to select a character. No, not create one, select one. Why the fuck are they standing like that? In a rare turn of events, I opted to be a woman, and in doing so, I lost my head, along with the other characters. Like, why have their heads vanished? Also, I know I'm nitpicking here, but when it asks you to enter the character name, it doesn't type over the text. Oh no, it keeps it in there. So it's character name Plobby. Is that my full name? Or is that going to disappear? I know it's very bitty, but it still lives rent-free in my head today. Along with this load screen, which clearly does not depict the game I'm about to play. After the load screen, it just sits on a map with, I think, the whole story being told in a little box in the top right. I know dogs are colorblind, but the yellow on yellow just made me not notice this, so I clicked the map, which was enough to skip the whole intro apparently. I then chose a profession without reading the big wall of text. And there we go, we were now playing Bounty Bay Online. Now to pick up my first quest. I'm not one to get upset easily, but I was quite distressed by your profession being split on the Y, so it's on 2 different lines. Like, how lazy was that, the very first quest, and you can't be bothered to get the formatting right? And secondly, why does it ask me to look at my professions again when I just chose my professions? Please first choose your professions. I just picked my professions, you just asked me to do it. Literally 5 seconds ago.
I've contained my rage for as long as possible, but I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves! Begone, vile man! Begone from me!
So yeah, not off to the best start. I mean, the question seems like it's going to be quite tedious, so I decided to go and explore a bit more. I found some crabs on the beach, so naturally I started kicking the shit out of them. I've blamed Skyrim desensitizing me to mud crabs over all these years. I won't lie, this went on for a bit. Why, you might be asking? I'm not too sure. Maybe I fell asleep at the keyboard, who knows. However, during this exchange of fists, I did level up, and the timer on the treasure chest was about to hit 0. Ah, yes, the dopamine hit I severely craved. You might be wondering why it's zooming in so stuttery. I assure you, it wasn't me. And then it started to jump about a bit and seemed even more stuttery. Anyway, I was done kicking the shit out of crabs, so I decided to hand in one of my quests I had. What's that, like 6 levels in the space of 30 seconds? What's going on? More broken sentences. Some more broken sentences, and another level up. You wouldn't believe how janky the controls are either. Imagine RuneScape, but not responsive and really clunky. I went on to do some more exploring, but all I could see was my game stuttering still for some strange reason. Please sign up to my Patreon or YouTube membership so I can afford to get a better potato PC, because apparently it's not powerful enough to run Bounty Bay online. In all honesty, if there's one thing I don't expect of a game of this age, it's bad performance, especially given the standards of PCs these days. New rule going forward, if the game's too janky to run, then I'm just not going to bother reviewing it. 0 out of 10, avoid, do not play this game. Next on the list is Uncharted Waters Online, which released in 2005, would you believe it? The game features over 100 different sailing ships and an open world based on real Earth geography. And best of all, it's free on Steam, so naturally I downloaded it and got stuck right in. Ah yes, another game, another create a character screen. Time to make another stain upon the world. Once again, we are forced to declare our nationality. And seeing as how much I love Dutch culture...
What's overrated when you're in Amsterdam? What should people not do?
Go to Anne Frank's house. Yeah, well,
it's just a house.
It's just a house. And she's not there, you know?
I went for the Netherlands, where I was confronted with one of the worst police lineups I've ever seen. You can instantly tell this is a Japanese game, but otherwise the character creator was pretty standard. Anyway, after much deliberation as to how fat I wanted to be, how bald I wanted to be, and generally how much of a neckbeard I want to look like, I give you my character, Blop. And with my character finally created, it was time to jump on in and see what this game has to offer. So first port of call, I had to do some little quest in order to get my boat. So off I went on my first little adventure. So there I was, dead bang in the city of Amsterdam, and I have to say, there's a lot less hookers than I thought there would be. I went exploring for a bit to see if there's anything of interest. On my travels, I saw a small child. Yeah. Not at all creepy, absolutely fine. I then found my future ex-wife, and in true neckbeard fashion, I got a selfie of her without asking. I then saw a K-pop tribute band, and eventually I found the guy I need to speak to in order to get a boat. And oh my, what a vessel she was. Before setting sail, I had to load up some supplies. It wouldn't be till much later that I'd realise my mistake in only stocking 2 cannonballs. But anyway, off we went to set sail and see what we could see. Now I won't lie, the mouse controls were a bit janky. Having to constantly reel the mouse to left to right to switch the camera angle was very tedious. But seeing as this game is older than some of my viewers, I'll let it slide this time. I got my first taste of naval combat on the practice boat, and I have to say, it wasn't horrible. I had a reticle to show the general direction I was aiming, and typically it was the whole go around in a circle and shoot each other with tab targeting. But it seemed simple enough, and I had won my first fight. So I continued my adventure and went exploring a bit more, and I kept running into these ships which were doing like a conga line, and I couldn't tell if these were players or NPCs. Either way, I was feeling a bit feisty, and this is a pirate game after all, so I picked a fight with a smaller ship. I've not spoken about the graphics too much, but it does give me like a Final Fantasy 7/8 vibe. And even the music has that same sort of tone to it. I spent the next couple of hours just sailing around exploring this game, and it wasn't horrible, it just wasn't my cup of tea. The combat was okay, it wasn't the worst combat I've seen, and they did have a feature where you could board the enemy ship, similar to Pirates of the Burning Sea. But whereas the ship combat feels like more action combat, this is 100% tab targeting in its classic form. There is a lot to explore, there's heaps of different towns that you can go and visit, and there's also crafting and ship customization and all the fun stuff that you'd expect out of a pirate MMO RPG. And it just felt very dated, and not even in a classic MMO way, more like it's a very dated console game. I did manage to find some other players, but it wasn't clear if they were AFK farming, or just simply bots. Either way, there wasn't much interaction, the global chat wasn't really speaking whatsoever, so it felt quite a lonely experience. But how do I rate it as a pirate game? I guess it's alright. For a wee boomer MMO. Sorry, not sorry. Next up is potentially the greatest pirate MMO ever seen. Or so it would seem. Despite people having fond memories of this title, Pirates of the Caribbean Online did sadly close down. But luckily, some superfans decided to keep the game open, and I give you The Legends of Pirates Online. Does anyone see the irony in piracy being used to bring a game back to life about pirates? Just me? Pirates of the Caribbean Online lasted roughly 6 years before it was closed down, and then 2 years later the private server popped up, which is what I'll be playing on today. So without any further delay, let's see what makes this game so legendary. Oh, finally, you're awake.
Aren't you a sight? You look how I feel, mate. Here, pull yourself together.
And that is by far the smoothest transition into a character creator screen I've ever seen. Look, I'm sure you're getting bored of me making characters by now, so I'm just going to cut to the chase on this one. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Ozempic Bloom. Although sadly I found out the word Ozempic was actually classed as profanity.
An honor to meet you, truly. And now, it's time to make our sortie. As in exit. As in leave. As in... now!
My nan fell down the stairs harder than that.
Works every time. That's not thunder, mate. If I were you, I'd fetch my personal effects and get out of range of those cannons.
Now, surprisingly, the controls of this game aren't that bad. It's WASD to move around, and holding the right click does your camera, so pretty basic standard stuff here. I'll be honest, at this point I've done enough tutorials in my life, so I decided to skip it. I'm sure that won't bite me in the arse later. So as far as first impressions go, you might notice that it's not UE5. It does, however, have a very child-friendly UI feel about it. But was Pirates of the Caribbean a kids film or an adults film? It's hard to say, it's like 50-50. Anyway, let's go slaughter some British. I made my way up to the mansion where I had some guards which I had to dispose of. Could a pretend dog on the internet who's played MMOs for the past 10 years skip the tutorial and figure out the controls on a Disney MMO? Jesus Christ, guys, have more faith in me than that. Anyway, if you click the slash button at the right time, you do combos, but your combos are limited to how high up you are in the sword play. At the minute, I can hit a combo of 2. Combo. I'm a simple man. When the numbers go up, my happiness goes up. So this game was pretty much hitting all my dopamine receptors. Seriously, look at all this elite gear I'm getting. I'm practically endgame. Also, I love the fact that this guy just sat outside watching me kill a whole battalion without even trying to help them.
Oh,
So you're Jack Sparrow's newest protege, hmm?
Up until this point, I generally thought it might have been the original cast, and then I heard her speak. Shame, because that's a really good Jack Sparrow. I was tasked with getting a boat and getting the fuck out of the tutorial island, so that's exactly what I did. Whilst trying to get off the island, I did miraculously run into another player. So I decided to be my usual charming self and try and interact.
Skippy, what a horrible name.
Yo. I do my legs do the talking.
My name is awaiting approval. I called myself Ozempic Bloom. I think that word is bad though. Anyway, I have to go save the world and stuff. Bye-bye.
Once again, another truly riveting interaction with someone in an MMO. Also, that conversation took about 5 minutes. Anyway, I fought a bunch of other guards, even this level 6 one, even though I was level 2, so, you know, just to prove how great I am at MMOs. And eventually, I managed to do what 6 seasons of Lost couldn't do, which was get off the island. I finally got to experience the ship combat, and I have to say, it wasn't actually bad. It was pretty decent, to be fair. It was the usual game of cat and mouse where you circle each other shooting cannons, so there's no getting away from that. I think that's just a pirate MMO thing. But where it did stand out was that you had mini games that you had to do in order to repair your ship. And to add some more spice to it, if you have friends on board your ship, they can manually use the cannons. So far, this had been the best ship combat in an MMO I'd seen. It just felt a bit more fun, and maybe because it's a little bit more arcadey, I guess, as opposed to trying to be like a MMO. Sadly though, there's no boarding other people's ships, although you could upgrade your vessel and also like customize it slightly. And you can also put skill points into ship abilities. Sadly though, I didn't manage to link up with anyone to do any open world ship combat, PvE or PvP, so I have no idea if that even exists, to be honest. I carried my adventure on land and started doing more of the main story questline, and I have to say, I started to get into it. I was actually enjoying this game. Did it have the sharpest graphics? No. Did it have the most complex skill tree? God no. The combat didn't require me to memorize 20 different rotations, it was pretty simple, and the story wasn't over complex and was very easy to follow. Overall, it was a good experience. I don't actually understand why this got shut down because I can see this appealing to quite a wide audience. So I'm glad to see that the private servers are still up and running and they do have people still playing. Because honestly, I think this game is worth checking out if you have the time. Now, as much as I'm trying to not be biased about what MMOs I play and which ones I like and don't like, Florensia, or however it wants to be pronounced, is an exception to that case.
16? At a push 17? 16? And this one? Yeah, he looks old and he's meant to be hard, but he's still only 16!
I apologise for what you're about to witness. So upon loading up the game, I had to choose my server, and surprisingly, there was an option for 2 PvP servers. I then had to create my character, which surprisingly was the worst character creator I've seen since New World. And that says a lot. Also, why has this 12-year-old got a six-pack? Actually, it's a 5,000-year-old demigod, so technically there's nothing wrong with this. Anyway, after spending 5 minutes cycling the same 6 hair colours, I decided to start the game. I just want to make everyone bear in mind that I have endured Hello Kitty Online, and yet for some reason, this game was seriously repelling me. Ah yes, more Fisher Price menus. Please pass me more crayons to eat so I can really enjoy this game. To anyone wondering, this game released in 2008 and it is actually free to play on Steam. It also classifies itself as a single player MMO, and according to Klaus here, who has 2,600 hours, you require a good credit card in order to enjoy this game. I wandered around the town a bit, and to my surprise there were other players. Maybe these are the kids from Peter Pan who never grew up. Anyway, another Fisher Price tutorial, and I was ready to go and do some combat. Truly entertaining. Look, I'm just going to cut this one short. I'm not really a fan of this type of game. I don't like the fact that the main characters look like children and then they give them tits. The shipbuilding did look interesting, but by the time I actually got to that point, I was kind of done with this game. The controls made this game very tedious because the camera and the movement was just not fluid whatsoever. And they even had a run to quest option, which would take you to the area of the quest sometimes, but when trying to use the same feature to run back to the original quest giver, after you have obviously completed the quest, it just didn't work. I know some people will think this game is super cozy and cowy, but doesn't that go against the whole point in a pirate MMO? Either way, it's worth noting I said I'd play every pirate MMO, not actually go ahead and 100% it. There's a few games which weren't added onto the list, and I'll explain why in the most simplest terms possible. For starters, New World. Yes, you get on board a ship and you land on an island. It does have elements of pirates, but I wouldn't necessarily classify it as pirate themed. I mean, you can't swim and there's no boat combat. Raven Dawn does have boat combat and has some elements of piracy. However, I'd say it's more fantasy RPG than pirate MMO. To those shouting Sea of Thieves, well, let's put it this way. It's 16 players on a server, so therefore, in my eyes, doesn't quite classify as a MMO. On top of that, there's no skill progression, it's all cosmetic, and there's no crafting, so it's a no for me. Which leaves one last game to talk about, which is of course... I know a few of you will straight away say it's not a MMO. However, I will say it's probably a MMO light. Yes, I'm coining a new phrase. And I really think it is worth mentioning this quadruple A title, simply because some of the mechanics this game does are fucking terrible compared to some of the older games that I've mentioned today in this video. So first of all, why am I calling this a MMO light? Well, admittedly, the server capacity is only 20 players. I know I said Sea of Thieves was 16, so we shouldn't count that. But also, Fallout 76 is only 24, and people count that as an MMO, so I feel like it's a halfway house. MMO light. It does indeed have crafting, loot drops, and all the fun artisan stuff that you'd expect from an MMO. You can group up with 2 other players to take on world bosses and instances which require multiple people at once. Open world PvP and PvE. And of course, the main thing that makes any MMO truly special, it has a cash shop and a battle pass. So now that we've established that it's a quadruple A MMO light, let's talk about how bad my experience was. So starting out was all nice and friendly, the tutorial was pretty straightforward, and I have to say the graphics are actually quite nice, and the ship combat is actually not bad. It had the usual go around in a circle and shoot each other, but there were a few more elements to it. You didn't just rely on cannons, and you actually had to aim to some degree, and also they had red bits painted on the enemy ships so you know where the weak points were. But to counter that, they didn't have boarding enemy ships. When you got close to an enemy, you can click the board option and it'll be a cutscene. I would just like to point out that Pirates of the Burning Sea and Uncharted Waters Online both had ship boarding mechanics, and those games are as old as fuck. The player interaction was, quite frankly, awful. You could see other players in the player hub area, but to actually interact was just like pulling teeth. The text chat no one seemed to use, there's no pop-up speech bubbles. You had shitty emotes that you can do, but honestly, who's going to notice? And they didn't even have voice chat. How in 2024 do you not have voice chat? I did, however, decide to flag for PvP to see what would happen, and I ran into one other player that was flagged for PvP, who was 5 levels above me, roll, level 9 PvP, and it was actually quite nice. They took pity on me and didn't attack. Instead, they emoted with their fireworks. I'm gonna make friends. Who doesn't notice I'm flagged for PvP? Oh, he just cheers me with a beer. Okay, I think he's been nice. He could have easily pushed my shit back in, but questing was not great. It was pretty awful. You could only track 1 quest at a time, even though you could pick up 20 at any given moment, and it was just a constant going in and out the map. I didn't even realise you could fast travel until 2 hours into the game. I know I'm shit on this game quite a lot, but they did kind of set themselves up for it by saying it was quadruple A and worth $100 on release. So believe me when I say I would rather play 100 hours of Hello Kitty Island Adventure than ever touch Skull and Bones again. So there you have it. I have now officially played every pirate MMO that's available to play in 2025. To anyone who got this far in the video, I just want to say thank you. It did take me a while to actually put this together. Who knew playing 6 MMOs would take such a long time? I also want to point out that a lot of these games I played were on a first impressions basis. It could be that they get better in the end game and that I missed a vital chunk of information out because I simply ran out of time. Either that or I just found the game so boring I fell asleep whilst playing. If you do feel like I missed any games off this list, by all means comment below. Maybe I'll circle back round and check them out at another time. But overall, the pirate subgenre is certainly a very interesting one, if not a neglected one. But as always, thank you for watching. If you've liked what you've seen, please leave a like. It really does help the algorithm. And if you want to see more of my content, by all means subscribe, and I'll leave a couple of videos on the screen for you right now. But that's it from me. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye for now.